Had Marco Polo actually ventured deep into Africa and into Madagascar, the true island, he might have discovered what other archaeologists would claim was made by Portuguese sailors years later. If we read phys.org, we can see this latest discovery. Enigmatic archaeological site in Madagascar may have been built by people with Zoroastrian origins, research suggests. At the turn of the first millennium AD, an unknown group of people lived in the inland Isalo Massif of southern Madagascar. Here they built vast terraces and carved large stone chambers and small hollow rock niches. The architecture is unlike anything else found in Madagascar or the adjacent East African coast. Who built these structures, when they arrived, and why was unknown. However, research by archaeologists Professor Dr. Schroers and his colleagues, published in Azania, Archaeological Research in Africa, suggests that the Zoroastrian community in Madagascar may have constructed the archaeological site of Taniki around 1,000 years ago. Today, Taniki is located in the Esalo National Park. The site's existence has been known for over 100 years. However, no detailed excavation have been undertaken there until now. The site was visited by French naturalist Alfred and Guillaume Grandidier in the 1940s, who hypothesized that the site had been constructed by passing shipwrecked Portuguese sailors as they traversed the island in hopes of coming across a port. 2 decades later, a trench excavation during the 1960s uncovered a Chinese jar sherd dating to the 16th century. But due to modern dating techniques, they have found charcoal that dates to the 11th century, which would be way before the people of Portugal would have ever made their way over here. And you can see in the article, they continue to talk about terraces, rock cutout, boulders, stone basins, circular and rectangular stone structures, ceramic shards. The most impressive thing is that there's lots of shards, including Southeast Asian ceramics dated to the 11th and 13th century, Chinese celadon, and Southeast Asian stoneware, both dating to around 11th and 14th century. And so, remember I told you in my previous video that there was a bigger excavation, a bigger expanse going on between East Africa, East Asia, the Middle East, Madagascar, and the islands in between. This is what was happening. This is one of the more modern proofs that prove that there's something bigger that was happening at the time. And then we also read them saying, since the Portuguese did not likely build the structures, nor were similar structures found anywhere in Madagascar or in East African coasts, the researchers had to look elsewhere, considering the local Madagascans population has genetic, cultural, and linguistic ties to Australasia, India, Arabia, and Persia. These places were investigated for similar structures. According to Schroers, while reviewing the literature, I was struck by the mention of rock-cut niches in various shapes and sizes in many regions throughout Iran, including the Fars region. I did find photographs of these niches in several publications, and there were niches and recesses just as at Taniki, indicating that they were initially probably closed off by a wooden or stone slab. These niches most likely served as bone ossuaries. This led them to hypothesize that Taniki was potentially a Zoroastrian origin. Most archaeologists associate the niches in Iran with Zoroastrian funeral rites, so that's how the initial potential link with Zoroastrian practices came up. At the same time, from primary historical sources, we know that the coastal region of Iran was involved in maritime trade since Sassanid times, and that ships from Siraf were sailing the oceans as far as China and East Africa, said Schwarz. Now, remember, one of these important ones is Ibn Battuta, and if you watch, I think it's 3 videos back, you will see that I talk about Ibn Battuta and how he talks about this giant trade going on between these areas. He also talks about people from East Africa traveling into Asia, into places like Persia. So you can see there that just because there's people from Persia who maybe seeded some civilizations in the African regions doesn't mean we have to reject it, because there was a back and forth flow, a synergy, rather than looking at it as black people, white people, blah blah blah. That's what I call 100%ism. The need that something must be invented 100% by one group, and no foreign person must be found in that region. Now, I don't want to give you the impression that the only people in history who inhabited that region might have been the Persians. Remember, might have been the Persians, not full fact, but based on similarities, there's no point of us dismissing that it could be them who built this place. But other people who lived in that region were the Bara people. The Bara people are a Bantu, mainly Bantu, especially back then, people who came from East Africa and landed in Madagascar. The word Bara is a Bantu word itself, meaning central. And that's why we know that these people were one of the earliest. They were later invaded by another group of people called the Mahafali. And the Mahafali people have their own history and their own rights just coming. And of course, there's a video that I'm going to make about these people of Madagascar, because we've neglected Madagascar for far too long. It has a long history of oral tradition, especially. One of these tales of oral tradition of the Malahafi is, according to oral histories, the Malahafi people trace their origins back to the early Murasarena noble Olembe Titoto, who emerged as a leader in the 15th century with the migration of the Morasena into the southwestern part of Madagascar. What we know about these Bara people is that they were cattle farming, and they were definitely nomadic in the way that they operated. They had very typical Bantu traditions outside of that, spears and stuff like that, and also cotton cloth and other stuff like that. So we do know that these people inhabited this region.